Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Coliving Innovators podcast, where we talk to co-living founders from around the world and try to learn from their journeys, experience, and mistakes. Today, we have Filipa with us from Same Co-living in Lisbon. Same Co-living, I think, started in 2019, and it was the first creative co-living space. This episode is brought to you by Co-living Incubator Program by Art of Co, where we help co-living founders who want to start their own co-living spaces and help them to start from scratch to scale. So, welcome, Filipa. Welcome to the Co-living Innovators podcast.
Hello, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Filipa. So, okay, let's start with a fun little segment. Let's do a little bit of a rapid fire. I think that'll get us comfortable as well, and the audience will also like a fun initial segment. So I'll ask you 5 questions. You don't have to think too much. Answer it in a single line or a one word, and yeah, you have to be fast. Okay. All right. So what's the one thing that makes a co-living space stand out?
Uh, the hosts, the people that receive the guests.
Interesting. Community or location? What's more important in attracting residents?
Community.
One must have feature for a co-living space.
What? Sorry.
One must have feature, like co-living
One.
space cannot be without this feature.
Like a common big living room, a common space where people can grab something to eat, for example, like a big kitchen, big space where people can be together.
Interesting. What's the biggest marketing challenge you have faced at Same?
Ooh, the biggest challenge. Well, maybe it was to find the right people. As for Same is very oriented to like community oriented, was maybe try to find the right target, right audience to talk to.
All right. One piece of marketing advice you would give to someone who is just building out their co-living business.
Really learn about, really understand your concept and really understand what you want to provide, what kind of experience you want to provide, because that's in the end, it's what people are looking for. And work a lot on how you can explain it in a very easy way, how you can provide a beautiful experience to someone.
All right. Thanks a lot. I think that was really, really interesting. Okay, so now let's deep dive into a bit of how did Same Co-living came to life. Can you take back us to the early days when you and your friends kind of decided, like, what was your thought process? How did you came to a point that, okay, now we want to start uh, like a co-living space?
Okay, so it all started, the idea itself started in 2017, 18. I was just back from Copenhagen. I was working there in a clean tech company. And that was when I heard about the concept of co-housing that was born in Denmark. And when I got here, I was talking with Gonçalo, that was the other co-founder. And we were talking about our desire to create something special, like because we are very purpose driven, and you wanted to create a beautiful space where people could meet each other, where we could like give an experience, create a community. We could like also give space to arts in Lisbon and create like a safe space for people to connect. So that was when we really wanted to create this, and we have like the great opportunity to sub-rent a building in Lisbon, the place where Samsam is. This was like the building was going to be sold, but then we we create like a whole business plan, and we start like our idea was to sub-renting. So we did constructions of the whole building to design it to be a co-living space. So that was why I was saying the importance of having like communal areas. So basically, we created something that could be for everyone. We have from shared rooms to private apartments, depending on how much a person like needs its own privacy. And then we also create like the co-working space. And as we really wanted to have the creative part in us, and we also wanted to not create a international expat bubble, we wanted to people to merge in a culture in a Lisbon community, as both of us are from Lisbon. We also created Esquina, that is like an artistic atelier. The prices were super affordable. Was really a way to make people like to have a space to create and to share. So that was the main idea. That's how our all started. So we opened in the 21 of March of 2019 as same. And we then 1 year later we open also in situ. That is basically our community space and our like restaurant and event venue.
Right. So, uh, if you can actually deep dive into how did you find this property? Because a lot of people struggle who are looking to start a co-living space. It becomes very difficult for them to convince the landlords and owners that okay, this is something that I'm trying to do. And back then, co-living was, I think, in its initial first phase, right? So how did you convince the owner and how were you able to get this property? Like, did you search somewhere? Did you use property portals? Or it was like somebody said you and you went there? Can you just deep dive into that a bit?
Yes, of course. I mean, I have to say we were very lucky for several reasons, but the main one is that Lisbon now has a big housing crisis. That was a bit starting there, but it was not as strong as it is right now. So, I mean, starting now, I don't know if it would be possible in a place like we are, as
Right.
small as we were, you know? Back then we had an opportunity because this first building it belonged to the family of the founder of my founder, so
Oh,
it was much simpler. He was going to sell and we asked no, like let us rent it. We created a business plan, we created like the contracts, we prove him okay, we will make this amount of money per month. And in a really like business negotiation, but he said like okay. So we make like investments, we like it was, but it was easier, you know? So it's not like the
understood.
example
So
on
you
that.
had a referral, and there was some help of the family which helped you get this space, and then you started. Right. But
Exactly.
okay, one thing that while I was doing my research on talking with you, one thing I stumbled upon was it's an interesting name, right? Same co-living. Like, is there a story behind the name? Um,
Well, actually, like this, the name was Gonçalo's idea. Uh,
okay.
and it was funny because I just come back from Denmark and my mind was just a lot of like very conceptual names, like Insit. Insit was my name. And Gonçalo was just came from Asia, like two different, completely different worlds. And he was like obsessed with the idea of same but different. And then we, in the end, we laughed so much because all the things the ideas we created to the table, we were all the time saying the same thing, but in different ways. So it make all the sense that, okay, let's move on with same. It makes like it was a funny joke. And in the end, it made sense.
And do you think this name played a role? Because if it's a different name, or if it's a if there's a humor in the name, people remember it more, and once they hear it, they will remember it for their for a long time. So, do you think this name played a role in establishing the brand for same?
I think it could make difference. A lot of people ask me. One thing that is also important to say here is that in the first years, both of us worked there full time, and we were also hosts. So we had a lot of contact with all the community. So a lot of people were asking us like, "What is his name?" And I would say like, "Oh, it's Gonçalo's idea," and people just laugh just because it was Gonçalo's idea. And we shared the story, we shared a bit everything, and all the dreams and the purpose that was behind the project. So I do believe that it makes more sense than just more like another name related to co-living, like so many, you know? Maybe, yeah, maybe it makes a difference that has this humor and this.
Right. Interesting, but that's a lesson for the listeners. Right? if you come up with a name which has a bit of a humor, and the retention of that name increases because it's different. It's not something which which you hear often, right? So because
Yeah,
it is different, it gets retained in your mind, and then when somebody's asking you for a co-living in Lisbon, and then you just say, "Oh, there's a same co-living," because you will remember this name.
exactly. And a lot
Interesting,
of people say this, but different, and it's not, we thought, should we put but different in the name or no? And then we didn't. And a lot of people come and say, oh, but it's the same, but it's different, so people get into the joke very easily. So that's also
right?
nice.
Yeah, but that's a good brand story, right? Cool. So now you in 2018, I think 18 or 19, you got this. 19, you started this space. Initially, your referrals helped you. Gonzalo's family had the space, so you got the space. So now you have the space. You launched the brand. The name is out there. Now, how do you get your first, let's say, 50 customers? How did you get your initial traction? Was it through portals? Was it through word of mouth? Was it through reaching out to existing communities? Right? Because back then, even the portals like coliving.com were there, but they were not as famous. And co-living as a concept was also not as famous as it
Yeah.
is today.
Yeah.
So, how did you get the first set of, like, did you list on Airbnb, booking? If you can map out the steps that you took in order to get the first 50 customers, that can be a great learning for all of us.
Of course. Well, I must say that I also did something before. We thought, okay, none of us has experience in working with customers because I always work in strategy and marketing. And Gonzalo was more responsible on the finance part. So we did like a pilot months, and that's something I really recommend everyone to do. It's before you really launch the brand, you just do like a trial when you have like customers and you provide the experience, and you learn a lot with it, before you put your brand out there, and there's so many room for bad reviews and so on. So I did that in the beginning, and we put our brand in Uniplaces back then. Uniplaces was very big in Lisbon in those years, more like
Right.
for students. But I mean, as like the location was really good in the first time, so it also helped us. Like a lot of people would want to live in the center of Lisbon, so we put like in the uni places only. And we started to like, we take really beautiful pictures. That's also very important, like beautiful pictures. We explain the description of what is Semsime and what we want to build and what we want to create. We start like providing the whole experience since day one. Like the events, we did like a lot of events, a lot of like community times and so on. And that was really helpful to, one, like I start to get to know the audience. I start to get to know like what the people are looking for. I start to understand what kind of things like people were searching in Google. So I started investing a lot in SEO, really a lot, and that also helped me to get clients. And then from then I started investing a lot in Google AdWords. So when I thought like, okay, we are really ready to set, we start like really being same. And we, in the beginning, we were in coliving.com for a couple months, but then I preferred to take off and we were just in same. Like our website was the only way to have like a direct booking with us for some time. And we also invest a lot in partnerships. That's also something I really recommend people to do. I mean, partnerships with other co-livings in Portugal, for example, like we are the co-living in Lisbon that they recommend, or other co-livings in another cities, especially like trying to partner with co-livings that have the same values as you. And ours was a creative co-living, very community oriented. So the personality was already so strong, it was very difficult to not it was like already something for you or it's not. So in that sense, it was
Right.
easy to filter people. You don't have to be an artist. It's not about that. It's about like the fact that you identify yourself with. So in the
Right.
beginning, for example, we had a lot of workshops and a lot of events happening. So yeah, summing up, since the beginning, it's all about the partnership. So we start to be in uni places, and then from then we start being a lot in SEO and Google AdWords. And then, yeah, and then we got our first clients.
Do you think your event space, like in situ, right? How do we pronounce it? Your event and
In
bar and
situ.
event space?
Yeah, in situ.
In situ.
Yeah.
So in situ, did that play a role because you had an open event space, a bar where anybody from outside could come?
Yes.
Did that help you in spreading the word that okay, there is a co-living here and you can come and stay here?
I don't think so. I honestly don't think
Okay.
so. I just think in situ really was the place. In situ worked for one brilliant thing was to bring people together. Really, in
Mhm.
situ was everyone from the team, and like the team, we were like around 5 people for the majority of the time. All of us would like go there after work and be with the people from the community. That everyone would go there for beer after work, for example, or we even serve lunch there. We had like free lunch that people could go and sit, and we could all eat together. At night, we had like concerts from small like starting bands, like Portuguese bands especially. So it was like, for me, it was really my goal to create this perfect mix between the expat community and the Lisbon community and bring them all together. So I think it didn't help in that sense, but it helped to build the experience, and it make a big difference on that actually.
So one thing that I have experienced because I also run a digital nomad co-living space right now in India. It's called Nomad Gaon, and we had a restaurant space. So we got a restaurant space in on terrace on one of our co-livings that we have in the mountains, and our occupancy skyrocketed after that because the restaurant was so good that people from all around the place would come there to eat. Even they were staying somewhere else, they would come to eat. Once they would come to eat there, they would see the space. They would get excited by the community because we have a very strong community vibe, and they will cut short their stay at the other stay and started coming at our place. So that's why I was asking you that question. That in our case, it did help us a lot, and in kind of building initial traction and brand. But you touched upon one very interesting thing, right? You said a lot of times we see that these co-living spaces become an expat bubble, as you rightly said, right? So your approach to integrating the local culture into this and people who are coming from outside, integrating them into the local culture, I think that provides a lot of authenticity to your brand, that you are an authentic brand, you're a local brand, people will remember you for that, right? And the locals also then actually help you because you are also helping the local economy
Exactly.
in making money, right? In a way. So they help you in turn. Like if somebody asks them, they will refer you rather than somebody else because it's win-win for both of you. I think that's a
Exactly.
very interesting learning for even all of us who are listening this.
Exactly. And I
Uh,
mean, that's maybe one
yeah,
of the reasons why it was not calling so many new clients, because a lot of the clients were actually Portuguese, so they lived here. It was not, it wouldn't make sense. We, for example, we got clients for the co-working space, for example, or
right.
even for Esquina, the artistic atelier, but not for Samsung. But I honestly, I mean, I had like the feedback forms, that I sent for all the same people, and they all said like in situ created the experience. So in the
Right.
end, yeah, it was this purpose.
Yeah, it helped in retention, right? And people will refer, the word of mouth expands. So I think indirectly it helps in increasing the overall brand value of the co-living.
Yeah,
All right,
100%.
now that we're talking about community, right? So according to what I've listened from you right now, community seems to be at the heart of same co-living. Um, and you're talking about people connecting with each other, going out after work and having a good time at NC2. Um, so a lot of times people just think that community is about doing events, right? That's the general perception. Okay, you're doing community building, meaning you're doing events. Can you deep dive into your definition of what community building was for you when you in initial days of same?
Of course. I mean, for me, creating a community was creating a home away from home. So, and that's why I also said it's really important. The first question that you look at me like interesting, like the people that hosts, and for that I have to talk about Maria. That was the our host for many years, and it's like she always treated, and all of us treated the customers like family. So we always give them a hug when we met them. We always making them to feel like good with us. We gave them like our cell phone numbers, so they had our numbers. They could call us, they could text us, they could ask her for tips, ask us for anything they wanted. We have it like the WhatsApp community group, and that is obviously more general. We had like the events, but we always had these like careful one-to-one contacts, you know. It was really important for us. Normally Maria would like go for a coffee, like an intro coffee with the people that arrived, to get to know them, to introduce the project, to introduce the team, to show like a bit around, and to make really people feel seen. For example, one thing that I started doing as well was to inviting people that felt more artistic and more like extroverts, that would like to host a workshop, creative workshop, for example. So we had many co-livers that were like sharing with the others, like the things that they learned to do, the things that they wanted to do, you know. So we really created this sense of family. And we as a team, we were all a bit of family, you know, like Maria was Gonçalo's cousin, then Antonio was like they're also like a cousin, and then Zala. We were all so family that I think this feeling was like really easily like shared with everyone and felt by everyone. So that's why I say that the part is really important. And we were really careful with that. And every time someone was not so happy, which will always happen, we will always try to manage it in a face-to-face, like to try to solve the best solution for the person, you know, really like from human to human. And I really
Right,
believe
right.
that makes a lot of difference. It's not just creating events full of people, and also like the scale. We were just, I mean, the max we could have will be around 40 people, you know, so it's easier as well. It's not like a max community. You can get to know people really well.
So do you feel that having a 40 people community, like we see a lot of brands are scaling and a lot of people who are starting co-living spaces have bigger ambitions.
Yeah.
So would you suggest that 40 is a good enough size for building one space and then they can have multiple spaces, but each community, like the effective community building happens with a size of 40, and if it is more than 40, it starts basically taking the overall experience a bit down?
I think it depends on the management. I think it's not necessary like to be destroyed, but I think that maybe more than one host, more like at least I think you should have two or three hosts, because in my opinion it's important to look at people like one to one. Especially that's also important. We have a minimum stay, and the majority of co-livings nowadays have. That's also nice, so you have more time to get to know people. It's very important. Otherwise, it's hard to connect, and it's hard to like to provide them that experience. But
Right.
if you have like 100 people, for example, maybe you can have like more than one host, and you have like a host per a next number of people, and that makes sure that that host knows them and
Right.
can help them with wherever they need.
You said a very beautiful thing, right? Making people seen, right? I think that's the key to building a great community always, that if you are enabling people to be seen and if they feel seen, they feel like it's something uh, that it's theirs, right? And they build and they start becoming a member and start taking ownership of a lot of things. So I think that's a key lesson that all of us should understand from a community building perspective, is the more we make people see, if you just do events, if you're not investing in making people see, I don't think it'll all be transactional. It'll not be relational, or people will not feel close to the space, or they will not stay invested in the space. It'll all be transactional, right? So I think that's the key to that a lot of people miss who wants to start creating co-living. And with a lot of institutional money coming into co-living, I think that's one thing that we have to preserve, right? The community building part of it, because that's what makes co-living different from a build to rent or a purpose-built student accommodation. So I think
100%.
that's very, very valuable.
I totally
Right.
agree with you.
So I think a little bit about Lisbon, right? I see a lot of people now wanting to start co-living spaces either in south of Portugal, like Algarve, or north of Portugal, like Porto. I see a lot of new co-living coming up, but not so much in Lisbon. Um, like, uh, what are the like? Did you face any? And what do you know about the challenges that from a planning permission perspective, are people facing a lot of challenges in starting new co-living spaces?
I mean, in Lisbon, I think that's the reason why I told you, like, there's a huge housing crisis, and the price per square meter is so high that it's not a good plan. It's not a good business plan. That's why I think people are not doing it here. I mean, it is why. It's not it is why.
Hmm.
And about other places, I mean, it depends. A lot of people already contacted me because of this, asking me for my opinion about Portugal bureaucracy. I have to say it's not easy. It's really not easy. We faced a lot of challenges in that sense, a lot, especially, and I mean, we were Portuguese, it to be even easier for us in a way, but it was not.
Right.
And I guess for a lot of international people, it doesn't matter where they come, like they arrive here and normally they don't understand, first of all, like the creating a business, like creating a company process, it's not so easy. Then like dealing with the councils, it's not easy sometimes, like they take years to accept new projects, so it's really hard. It's really hard, but there's many new projects and I love it, honestly. There's like beautiful things being created in Portugal, in the countryside, for example, a lot of regenerative permaculture projects that embrace co-living and they also are like part of the nature. And for example, even with the natural wine, we in situ, we worked with a lot of these like properties because we wanted to, like, in the beginning sell their own ingredients, so we only work with like organic ingredients and from like local farms.
Right.
uh, so I got a chance to know some of them. But yeah, so I would totally recommend to get like a good people here in Portugal, like a lawyer or something that could help them to go through the process. And then, I mean, this is a beautiful country, so I think it's worth it.
Very, very interesting. Thanks a lot for sharing that. I think let's move on to one again. This is an interesting topic for a lot of people. Right? As you grew, right, as you opened your next space, or as your popularity grew, how did your marketing change? Were you still doing what you were doing at the start, or you changed your marketing methods as you moved ahead?
So yeah, so we opened the second building in 2022, in January, and just like a small strategy, we gave, like, we invited some people that stayed with us, like that created, like, were key elements in our community, and we invited them to make a huge welcome party of 1 week in a new building, which also was a beautiful, like, not digital strategy, like a digital marketing strategy, but a marketing strategy that created a lot of amazing content per se. But one of the things that changed a lot was that in the beginning, we were more accepting everyone, kind of, and in a second, we created like a form that people like needed to apply to. And the reason why I did it was that we start being able to curate a bit our community. And that was also very nice. We could also provide like a better experience by getting to know the people before they arrived. And for example, especially for people that wanted to be in shared rooms, we could match the people that would make more sense. We could, for example, understand if the people were more, because we had like like some questions, and then I was making the calls for a long time. Me or Zala were making the calls for like 10 minutes to get to know people and to explain them what was Same and where they could where would they like to stay, if in the second building was more sociable, in the first one was more about privacy, so I could like adapt the offer to them. So that was one thing that changed, like how when we start having more and more offer, we start to talk to, we were afraid of losing these one-to-one, so we did this. And we start investing more as well in SEO, because then we
Okay.
start having like more and more competition, because in the beginning, as you said, when we opened Samsung, there was only outsides, was the only co-living, and it was open like not so long before us. So co-living was a really recent thing, but then out of the blue, there were so many. Or I mean, not all were co-living, but they were saying they were co-living. You know this story already. But so
Right.
we like really have to invest a lot in SEO and explaining the people why Zemsem was different in that sense.
Right, so this is one thing that a lot of people don't understand. They think that, okay, SEO is something which will give you quick results. But I think the moment you start the brand, SEO is a very long-term play. It helps you a lot in long term to bring down customer acquisition cost. And
Yeah.
it's not only about driving conversions, it's also about building the brand, setting up the right kind of communication, getting people uh, to understand what you are and what do you stand for, so that if there is a value uh, that kind of aligns, there is a value alignment, then it becomes a like a great community. So I think SEO is not only about getting customers, it's also about establishing a brand, communicating in the right way, making sure that right people find you, because the better the SEO becomes, the easier the curation becomes for a community.
100%.
Right,
I mean, people spend so much money in Google AdWords, so much money. And it's the leads per se are not so qualified sometimes, you know?
right,
It's
right.
not the right people. In SEO, you have the power, as you said, to curate a bit, to filter a bit. So I really recommend this strategy.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for that. All right. So now let's move on to let's talk about a little bit of trends, right? Where do you think the co-living industry is moving? What are the trends that you have seen in the last year or so? Uh, Anything special that you have experienced or anything special that you have seen and you would like to share?
Yes, of course. So I will share the ones that talk with me the most. So the ones that I start like looking a lot for. And I've seen a lot that, I mean, a lot of co-livings are running away from the cities and are going to the countryside. And they are like bringing a lot of life to countryside that normally has less young people, has less stuff happening, less dynamic things. And I think that's beautiful. There's many and many. And I think a lot of people from our generation is getting a bit tired of cities and are moving to the countryside as well. And maybe they didn't it before because there was no enough offer for them. And I think it's beautiful that so many co-livings are doing it. I think it's one of the trends is to do that. And I'm really happy with it, and to find like this I think our generation is like so much burnout with work, and people are really understanding that are way much more things than that. So they're looking for places that are like more, create like a more headspace, more like related to the well-being, to being healthy, like eating well, sleeping well, resting well, enjoying well, like their daily lives. And I really I've seen so many places that are born with these concepts, and I think it's beautiful. I think we all as people, we don't have to face competition in that sense. We just have to be happy there are so many people that want to go to these more collaborative rather than competitive places, and want to create like a better quality of life for them and for the others around them. And I also see more and more this community concept that when I was younger, I didn't see much. I mean, I'm from the city. I always lived in cities, and I'm really not used to communities. And we created this because we were looking for one. And I'm seeing so many community trends like popping up everywhere, and I really like it. I mean, I'm very happy that we are shifting a bit. Not everyone, obviously, we will never be, but I feel like we are shifting a bit our mentality for that. And I also see a lot of co-livings more related to regenerative agriculture, like I was saying before, and that's also a beautiful thing to see. So yeah, for me,
So
these are like the references.
no, that's so beautiful because one thing, extending what you are saying, right? One thing that I have seen across is people are becoming a lot more aware in terms of how they want to live. The value system for a certain segment of people is becoming very strong. And if a certain brand doesn't follow your value system, people are actually moving away from buying that brand or using that brand, right? So it's for co-living spaces, it's very, very important to build their identity uh, from their value system so that people can understand that value system when they visit your website or when they visit your space and then take it forward accordingly. So I think that's really, really relevant for anybody who's looking to start co-living space now. Like 5 years, 10 years back, this was not really a point of concern, but now it has really, really become a point of concern.
Totally.
All
Totally.
right. So last point from my side is like any so most of our listeners are people who want to start a co-living space at some point in their life. So any suggestions or advice or tips you have for these people, please feel free to share.
Okay. So maybe I would say again, like maybe think really like how why do you want to create a space? I'm a marketeer, so I'm all about the storytelling. So I think it's really important to understand really the concept of it, and to really create like imagine what kind of place you would like to have. And when I say this, it's not just about the branding, it's also about the experience you want to provide. And I really believe we should like craftily design it, from the space itself, from the architecture of the place to the furniture of the place to like the host you hire, or if you will be the host, or like the marketing strategies you use, the places you connect, the partnerships you will have. All this stuff must be very crafted, because as you said, like people tend to really choose the place they identify more with. And the communities, like the way to create loyalty is to have the community, and the community will just follow the things they identify themselves with. So maybe you can try to find a niche that it doesn't exist yet, like we tried to do with the creative co-living. Now there's a lot of well-being, but well-being is such a broad thing. There's so many things inside, and there are so many things that are not yet like they don't exist yet. So I would recommend to maybe look for a different angle and to try to create a community around it, and to be very careful with the experience that you provide. I think that's the key of a co-living place.
Right. So thanks a lot for sharing that. Just to summarize, few points I noted down while in our conversation, and I would like to kind of leave the audience with a few of those points. Making people seen. One of the biggest takeaway for me as well is a key to building great communities is making people seen. I think that's something that people should look for. The community size of 40 is a good size, and if you have a larger co-living space, you should look at hiring more hosts so that you can have that one-on-one interaction. From a marketing perspective, invest in SEO right from the start so that it can help you build the right brand and attract right kind of people. And initially, you mentioned that you listed yourself on a marketplace to get initial people, but as you grew to your second place, curation became more and more stringent because now you knew what were the kind of people you wanted to host. So initially, we can be relaxed a bit, but as we move ahead, the curation is what makes the community great. So that is another thing. And yeah, like understand your why. Like, what are your motivations? Why are you starting, and for whom are you starting? I think a great story always sells, and if you have a great story behind the brand that you're creating, it will lead to really, really interesting results for you. And the
Definitely.
last thing is find a niche, even if there are enough people in it, find your niche, find your calling, and then build your whole co-living brand around that. And I think those were some of the key takeaways, definitely for me. And it's always good to be authentic because authenticity breeds trust, and trust breeds great communication and community in turn. So, with those thoughts, thanks a lot, Filipa, for taking our time and talking to us about your journey with Same Same and helping the potential co-living founders with a lot of actionable insights. Thanks a lot. I will add your credentials in the description. So if anybody wants to directly reach out to you, they can directly reach out to you. And thanks a lot for taking our time.
Thank you so much. It was a really good conversation. Thank you so much for the
Thank
invite.
you.
Industry-wide change is a collective dream. Collaboration, cooperation, that's our theme. From multi-generational homes to global scenes, we shape the future, living out our means. Each story unfolds with art of code, lessons in the lows, wisdom untold. Ask your questions, join the conversation. Together we build a resilient foundation. Resilience, innovation, the keys to thrive in the Coliving movement. We come alive, from struggles to triumphs, we pave the way. In our global article community, we find the sway.